So hi everyone, welcome. As you can see, once again joined by the amazing Marvin. Marvin, introduce yourself again for those who haven't seen our first video.
Guys, what's going on? This your man Marv back for another wonderful interview with Scottish Joe, aka Joe Neville, Joe Goddard, whatever you want to call him, because this is one of the best people at breaking down Neville's work. So happy to be back, guys. Happy to be back.
Thanks, and also for those that don't really know Marvin, he's had one of the best experiences with regards to manifesting a specific person, which is where the first video stemmed from, and we really broke down the mechanics of that, and we spoke about a lot of Marvin's personal journey, where he went through from start to finish, what he was aware of during that. So as I was saying to you before we started this, Marvin, I was watching that video back and a lot of really good content there. And try to pick up, from where we left off. Obviously, it's been a long time in the making. There's a lot of stuff happened in those few months since we recorded that. A lot's changed in the current climate and stuff as well. But yeah, what I was really wanting to get into tonight was just talking a little bit about the mechanics of inner talking. Obviously, I've recently made a couple of videos of that. So if I could just get a little bit of your insight on that before we crack on. So how important do you feel a sustainable, healthy mental diet slash inner conversation is? Not necessarily with manifesting, just in general everyday life.
So I that's a great question. I feel like my teaching style is always predicated upon mixing LOA with the real world. And I feel like it's super important to do it that way because I've realized so many people, like, that's what they do. It's very hard for an individual, I would say most individuals, to apply the works of, say, Neville or Abraham Hicks. You know what I mean? Because they will hear, just like there's that scripture in the Bible that says many people are hearers of the words of the word, but not doers.
Yeah.
And so they will hear Neville say, live in the end. They will hear Abraham Hicks say, raise your vibration. They will hear these things, but the hook is how much will they practice it?
Yeah.
How often? What's your frequency? And so that's why I try to explain things the way that I do, because I know that most people, they won't be able to get it that way. So what I'll do is, in order to try to help them, keep up with their mental diet, is I will give them, real life examples of, living in the end, or how to live in the end, or how to, keep that focus on your mental diet. Because I think consistency is the biggest issue with anything in life. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's trying to manifest in a specific person or a new job, or I just think consistency is why people fail. Because you look at athletes, you look at, the top athletes in the world. Why are they the top athletes? Because they're consistent night in and night out with putting in a certain amount of effort, or whatever their routine is that they've come up with. You know what I'm saying? But why are so many athletes average or below average? Is because they're not consistent. They get to that point where they get to the professional leagues, and then they kind of plateau, and they don't really care about, getting better, improving. And so that's why so many of the top athletes always stand out, is because there's a certain level of consistency. And this, to me, always ties in with mental diet. You know what I'm saying? If your mental diet is not consistent, then most times you're just never going to get results. And for some people, like when you're on that sort of Neville level, or, Buddha level of manifestation, or Jesus level manifestation, where you can literally feel it one time, like that's literally it. Like you just visualize it, feel it like one time, you know what I'm saying? And then, you just let it go, and then it manifests, it happens, because everyone's at a different level of manifestation. But again, most people, it will not be that easy for them. And so many people on YouTube, I feel like they make people feel like it's that easy. They make people feel like it can happen quick. It can happen in 24 hours, or it can happen in 48 hours. But me personally, I don't believe that for most people, and I believe it'll take time. And the way to get there is through um, mental diet, staying
Yeah,
consistent with
yeah.
whatever it is you're trying to manifest and visualize.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Very difficult to argue with any of that. I mean, it's not to say you're absolutely right. It's not to say that you can't get anything fast or quick, but I think it's really important, to have that, that consistency, that that persistence in your mental diet and your own practices. And if everyone has a different personality as well, I feel, and your personality is ultimately developed through habit the
Mm,
exact same way as this practice is it's developed through your own habits. So for an example, learning how to drive a car,
mm,
you go into your car and everything's new, especially if you're, working as you would say in America, working the stick. There's a manual transmission for me, but it's the same thing. You've got to learn, when to use the clutch, all these different things. But then through practice and time and all this effort that you put in, although it's external physical effort, that goes on the subconscious. And then when you know how to drive, you don't think about driving. You go into the car, you do everything, and unless you're really conscious and aware of what's happening, then you're noticing the foot going into the clutch, you're noticing the change of gears. But that happens so natural. It's the exact same with this. If you have a consistent mental diet and it's from the premise of having your desire, if you maintain that and you maintain it, you maintain it, you maintain it, you're more likely to get results. Where I feel people trip up is they do it to get results. Now, this is the thing, people will do it just to get results. Then I feel the result comes, then people stop doing it. They think it's natural at this point. Now, you'll know when it's natural because it will be part of your day regardless. You won't even know you're doing it. It will change your state so feelingly that you don't have to do it anymore because that's a natural state of consciousness as far as I'm concerned. However, people will do it and they'll do it for a week, they'll do it for 2 weeks. They haven't seen anything on the outside, they haven't felt anything on the inside, and then they stop. That's not going to develop a habit. Habits, develop naturally, I feel. And it could take, and Neville says in multiple lectures, it could take a day, it could take a week, it could take a month. It takes as long as it takes. And it's
absolutely.
all proportionate to, I feel, the consistency, the amount perhaps you do it, and then the naturalness behind the statement slash feeling. I feel all those factors ultimately determine, your external result. And people, and
Right.
yourself, you don't get an external result until you notice the inner change. But people will
Absolutely.
people will do it because they almost have it back to front. They'll think, if I do this, then I will get this, and then I will feel this. Those last two steps need to change. If those last two steps change and it's I will do this and then I will feel this, then I will be this and I will have this. But
Mm,
people will do it with a completely different agenda. And I think that's one of the biggest handbrakes slash blockers to actually receiving a manifestation is they do it to get, and it's all focused on to get instead of being what they want. I mean, I hope that makes sense to yourself and the viewers, but I think it's so important. Mental diet is just a consistent practice, and it's not a practice to get, it's a practice for life. Because to stop that on yourself, to stop that consistency is, you're taking from your own power, you're taking from yourself, you're cheating yourself almost. That's just my personal opinion on it. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it's so important for people to know that, as Marvin says, the consistency is so crucial, but it has to be from a place of, for yourself, for getting,
yes.
yourself back and being in a good state. Because
Absolutely.
again, yeah, people will do it to get the outside result because, especially with a specific person, they feel the love's over there and it's not here. So they'll do it to get the love and then feel the love. What happens is the person comes back, they still don't feel loved. They've cheated themselves. They go back into the old man state and then they lose the person again. And then it's just a cycle. It just becomes a cycle, you know. That's the way I feel about it anyway. So I don't know if you want to kind of add to that.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of covered a lot there, but yeah, it's just how I feel. I feel quite
Listen,
passionately about it. So
no, listen, man. I mean, you said something extremely powerful. You know what I mean? When you talk about people are only doing it to get an end result. And I just think that you hit the nail on the head because, you know, whether it's especially like when you talk about a specific person, like so many people are doing these techniques not to try to find themselves.
yeah,
They're only doing it because they want to manifest a specific person back. But when you get to the point to where you're actually doing these techniques to try to actually try to find yourself, to actually, experience like the real God within, like nothing really phases you.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like SP can't really phase you. This situation can't really phase you. And even Neville had a change in heart about, a specific person because he mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this in our first interview, but he mentioned before later on in his later works, it's not the specific person that you really want, it's the feeling.
yeah, yeah.
That's what
That's
that
true.
he was saying. That's what you really want. Because I remember someone saying like, oh, Neville contradicted himself because he was saying before you can manifest the SP back, but then later on he kind of switched up
Yeah,
and was like, yeah, you can manifest a specific person, but specific person is really not what you want. You want that feeling of love. You want that feeling of the relationship. You want that
yes,
feeling of connection. You want that feeling of, you know what I mean, just oneness. Like that's what you want.
yeah,
And you can get that from another person besides your specific person. And I
yes,
don't think that's what people realize is like when your mental diet is strong enough, like you realize and understand, okay, if I give that to myself, you know, I'm eventually going to get that from my specific person or I'm going to get that from another specific person.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to get that feeling.
yes,
That's what I'm going to get.
yeah.
But again, like you said, you got to come from the right place.
So
And Neville, like you said, Neville mentioned many times, I don't know when, I don't know how. That's not up to me.
yeah,
What's up to me is to know that whatever I want to manifest, it is done.
yeah,
Living that feeling of the wish fulfilled, like he talks about, keeping your mental diet strong, not only doing something, once a week or, once every 3 weeks, because I think that's what a lot of people do.
yeah,
Um, Consistency to me, my definition of consistency is doing something every week.
yeah,
At least say maybe once or twice a week. You know what I'm saying? Like consistent, and then over a period of time, in a year, that's a person doing something 52 times. So in 1 year, you have created a scene for at least 52 times in 1 year, or
yes,
you've said affirmations for 52 straight weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that's consistency. And what people don't understand is consistency in your mental diet. At first, it starts off down here, but then as you keep doing it, you go higher and higher and
yeah,
higher and higher, and your foundation becomes so much stronger. You know what I'm
yes,
saying? To where if you take I tell people this all the time. With your mental diet, that's a person taking 500 steps forward, right? When you get consistent with it and you stick with it. Picture you taking 500 steps forward, okay? Now, picture you get your SP back and you and your SP get into an argument. Guess what? You've already taken 500 steps forward. So when you and your SP get in an argument, that's literally you only taking like 5 or 10 steps backwards.
yes,
You know what I'm saying? You're still ahead of the game. You're still winning. You know what I'm saying? I like to use the analogy of keeping your mental diet strong is just like a professional sports season.
yeah,
If in one season uh sports teams play 82 games, like in basketball, you play 82 games, why are you worried about the 10th game of the season that you lost or the
yeah,
50th game of the season that you lost?
yeah,
The goal is the championship. You will win in life. You will eventually win the championship if you stay consistent. Like
yes,
you
yes,
will. It doesn't matter how much effort you put in. Some people say, "Oh, you got to put in a lot of effort to get there quicker." Me personally, knowing what I know now about law of attraction, law of assumption, I don't believe in that. But some people tell you, oh, you got to work hard, you got to kill yourself, and that'll get you to where you want to be faster.
Yeah,
But to me, it's like, no, the more you are in alignment with who you are, with what you want, that'll get you there faster. It's not about
yeah,
the effort, you know. So I would just say to the viewers, you know, stay consistent, but do it the right way. You
yes,
always look at the bright side with your mental diet. You've taken 500 steps forward. If something happens and you have a bad week, so what? That's just a bad game. There's 82 games to be played, or 100 games to be played. Don't worry about, you know, the 10 games that you lost that season or the 20 games that you lost, because ultimately the championship is what you want and what you will end up getting.
yeah. I love that. I love that analogy. But being a massive sports fan as well, that that plays right
Yeah,
into my conscious. I love that. It's you're absolutely right though, because you know you almost need to, again we go back to, you know, allowing and acceptance. You need to, you know, if you have that dip, if you have that drop, if to, you know, accept that you've had it. Don't go into blame. Now, people, you're absolutely right. People will maybe do it for a week or a fortnight, then they'll have a dip because and then they go into self blame, self loathing, whatever it is, and they'll go in
right,
and say, you know, oh, I stopped doing it. No, I'm not going to get it. Oh, what's the point? I never, you know, they go right back to that old man because, you know, it's not, you know, it's not became a habit. You need to accept yourself when you've had this experience, because you're absolutely right. If you take maybe 25, 30 steps forward on this journey and you have a setback, you don't go back to the start. You only go back to the start if you fall and you turn around and start going back that way again. You know, you need to, you know, accept yourself for having, you know, this experience, this dip in consistency. It's okay, but consistency is what you're striving for, and striving for the end result. And the
right.
consistency only comes through practice. It only comes through making your practice a habit. And again, if you go back to the sports analogy, if you're a successful sports team and you're winning becomes a habit.
Mm.
Winning, you know, and that you could
Comes a
maybe,
mindset.
yeah, exactly, and you can maybe associate that with getting results. Now, people will say, well, I've done this and I don't have the result. You know, you don't have the result because you've not built up that mindset. You're absolutely
Right,
right. You've not built up that winning mindset, and from there, you know, that becomes a habit. That becomes, and it comes through practice. It all comes through self practice. Yeah, I love that analogy about, you know, sports teams. It's so good. But you know, you're so right. Consistency is crucial. I mean, you'll know yourself. You spoke about it in the first video, how, you know, you were on a 5 year journey
right,
and it took you 4 years to realize you weren't being consistent.
right.
You know, and again, that goes back from just learning and not applying, being a hearer and not a doer, as you put it earlier. It's the same thing. You know, you've spent so long building up all this knowledge, and then you come to that 4 year point. It's like you almost ask yourself, I know all this stuff. I know this is how life works. I know this is the process. I know, but I still don't have. And then you go in and go, right, why? You know, why do I know all this? Why is it not happening? And you can be, and this again, I think is key for everyone. You can be honest with yourself and say, I haven't been applying it. I haven't been consistent. And if you, again, that can go two ways. You can either blame yourself or you can accept yourself. If you can accept that you haven't been consistent and you make a determination at that point to say, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be consistent, and I'm not going to be consistent to get an SP/X back or anything. I'm going to be
Exactly,
consistent because this should be a way of life, regardless.
exactly.
One thing I wanted to say with regards to that, you were talking about a relationship. I feel personally, you know, when you get to that self-loving state, that state of consciousness of being love, it's not so much. It becomes less about getting the love, and it becomes more about sharing the love that you are, and that person ultimately becomes that reflection of, you know, the love in your state of consciousness.
Mm.
That's why they are there. You know, you felt that. I mean, I know personally through my own experiences years ago, very at times quite, you know, needy, feeling rejected, all these different things. really self-conscious, but not in a good sense, you know, really beating myself up all the time. And I remember years ago, you know, just throwing my hands up and saying, I'm done feeling like this. I'm done with it. I'm going to make a change. And within a week, I had a partner, and it was like just literally just a change in mindset, just a shift and a consistency. Going, no, not feeling like that anymore. This is how I am. I'm, you know, I'm attractive. I'm smart, confident, whatever you want to call it. That shift, and that shift just completely changes your inner energy. It just changes everything within. And within a week, I met someone, and it's like that shows, I suppose, how quick it can happen. But I after that, I didn't fully change. I done it for a week.
Mm,
I got the thing
mm,
that I was unconsciously looking for at the time. By the way, I want to
yep,
specify that
yep.
I got the thing, and looking back, it was a test to see where I was in my own journey. This was before any learning any of this stuff, and I just completely dropped the ball. Totally
Mm,
dropped the ball, and I went for a period of like 5 months in a relationship where I was just completely warped by it, completely lost in this feeling of I need that if this person goes anywhere, I'm going to be a state. As sure as it happened, it did. And it was the best thing that happened to me because I learned then. I'm like, that was almost, you know, that was the catapult. It was like, this is where I'm at now. And I can't be this way, and I need to be this way for me. I need to be a better way for me. And through practice, again, through consistency, and there was initially a desire for a person, and then that completely changed because you discover all this stuff, and it's like, I feel good about me. That that for me, no one's going to give me that. And if I want to have that with someone, I need to feel that about me first and foremost. And you know this yourself through your own practice and through your own experience. So it's so important to have that consistency in that mental diet. On reflection, what was your, I suppose, do you recall what your inner conversation was when you started becoming consistent? Did you have affirmations in mind, or did you just flow with it? Was there anything that you actually consciously devised as a mental diet, or did you just naturally go about your business?
You know, that's a great question. I guess I could say first off, like I didn't really start paying attention to and seeing these types of, affirmation videos up until maybe, I don't know, maybe a few months ago.
Okay.
Um, because I was always, on Agnes's channel, and I just firmly believed in what she was preaching. And it wasn't until, like I said, maybe some months back where I was like, what is all of this affirmation stuff? And, people just trying to affirm to get their SP back and this and that. So for me personally, I tell people all the time that I work with, and even on my channel, I never did any of those types of affirmations
Okay.
to get at to manifest the SP back. What I purely did, what I can remember to answer your question, I just remember me always my self-love just always being the key, my self-concept
Yeah.
always being the key. And to me, that's what did it, is I took the focus off of my SP and I shifted my energy to myself,
Yeah.
and I put all of that attention, whatever you want to call it, I put it on me. And when I did that, that's when it clicked. And I could remember, like, going to sleep at night or waking up in the morning and just telling myself, like, man, I am loved, I'm appreciated, I'm worthy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Those are the types of things that I said. And looking back, like, it just seems so natural. It just seems so smooth. It didn't seem forced.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't visualize every week. I mean, not every week. I didn't visualize every day.
Hmm.
I did visualize every week because, again, like I said, I would rather do something once or twice a week and keep at it than to skip weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't as consistent as some other people may be. Again, we're all at different levels.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think looking back, I think it was a pretty smooth transition, and it didn't feel forced, and it just kind of was like really natural and easy. And I did things and said things that were in alignment with how I felt at the time, in alignment with with my beliefs, because I think that's another error that a lot of people do is they try to their desires aren't natural,
Yeah,
and I think Neville mentions that as like being sin. Like Neville's definition of sin and our definition is, and the world's definition of sin is like totally different.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And Neville means like with sin, like, oh, you missed the mark. You know what I'm
yes,
saying? Like your desires really aren't your desires. You think they're your desires, but they're really not. You know what I'm saying? And so
yeah,
I think that was something that I didn't necessarily do, but I see a lot of people doing it. Is they're for instance, they're breaking up. They just had a major fight with their SP, and then they're gonna try to visualize a marriage. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like that's just not gonna work. You know what I mean? Like it's I mean, I understand, like again, like I said, I explain things the way I explain things because I understand like people are like there's so many people in this LOA community and Neville community, whatever, they like tell you to ignore the 3D or whatever the case may be, which I
yeah,
agree with. But at the same time, I understand that most people that study this stuff, they will not be able to ignore the 3D. That's why I try to give real life examples, real world examples, and try to help people gauge that way. And
yeah,
this is what I did for myself is I allowed myself to say, okay, Marv, I understand this is the destination you want to get to, but you got to understand where you're still currently at while maintaining the faith and building that faith muscle. Again, like we said earlier, the sports analogy, but also you can use stocks. You know what I'm saying? Manifesting, keep your manifestation is like stocks.
yeah, yeah,
Stocks go up, come down, go up, come down, go up, come
yes,
down. Stocks never shoot straight to the top. They never. No stock. I don't care what stock it is. I don't care how great the company is. There's never a straight up shot.
uh,
There's always a pullback. There's
yeah,
always a pullback, and then it goes up. Pullback, then it goes up, then it may plateau. And this is just how life is. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
so me personally, I ignore the 3D, but at the same time, I am very well aware that I am in the 3D, and I don't try to get rid of that. I don't try
yeah,
to act like it's non-existent. You know what I'm saying? Because it is existent. Just
yeah,
like whatever's going on in the world. Last week we had the Capitol riot in DC in our country. It's like you can't ignore that. Like you can sit here and say, "Oh, believe in law of attraction, believe in spirituality, believe in collective consciousness," but that's something that really happened. That's going on that I'm aware of. I'm not going to disregard that. And I
yes,
think in my specific person journey, it was the same way. Like I accepted things that happened because I was becoming more spiritually aware, conscious, but I was able to move on and continue to proceed. But I feel like that helped me with my specific person journey is because I was able to acknowledge I didn't run from what the reality was. I didn't
yes,
run from it, but at the same time, I didn't let it consume me. I in consciousness, I rose above it while
yeah.
understanding. It's kind of like this weird duality. Like I don't know. I sound like I'm like rambling right now. Hopefully, you
No,
guys get what I'm saying.
yeah, I totally agree. I love that, and you were touching on it there. The key for that, I feel, is acceptance. You're right that there's a difference between shutting out the 3D, and I think Neville always talks about ignore the 3D reality, right? I agree with it to an extent,
Right, right. Me too.
but you're absolutely right in the sense that things do happen, right? Things are currently occurring in the climate. Things are happening in collective consciousness. I feel we're all connected through consciousness.
Right, me too.
I mean, even with regards to earlier before we started recording, you're saying need to get new material, and then I dropped you an email, and bang, everything's connected. We're all connected in some capacity.
Right.
You know, ignoring the 3D reality isn't refusing it, isn't resisting it. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. Resisting it means that there's still attachment to it. It can still move you in a certain way internally. It can still affect you in a
Mm,
certain way internally. If you can if you can be unmoved by the 3D reality, it means you can see things going on, you understand things are happening, but they don't shift your consciousness in the same way. They don't.
And your emotions.
Yeah, and your emotions or your feeling, none of that. They don't change these at all. You're in
Right.
such a place that you're aware of it. You have an enhanced awareness,
Right.
but that thing doesn't dictate how I feel about myself or how I feel about life. Now, with regards to your example, obviously it was an atrocity what happened last week. Really,
Right.
really horrible situation. Now,
Right.
for some people, they may feel they see it on the news and they're like, I don't want to watch that, but they know it's there. They're like, I don't want to watch it, and they'll maybe turn it off, and then something will come up, maybe on the phone, like a notification of the same thing, and the more they're resisting it, the more they're
Mm.
giving energy to it, and the more they're likely to see it. To be aware that that happened, and not not accept what happened because it was terrible what happened, but accept how you feel about it, accept how it affects you, accept it for what it is or what it has become or how it perhaps affects collective consciousness is crucial.
Mm.
And with regards to maybe a specific person as well, people may see things, whether it be online or whatever, and it can really shatter their confidence. It can extreme and then they'll say, "Oh, but I'm trying to ignore my reality." Like, no, you need to accept where you are on the journey. And
Mm.
if this has come up and it's something you don't want to see or don't want to experience, then this is a test. Almost people will call this a test.
Mm.
It'll be right. This has come up. How are you going to move forward from this? And you're right with the stocks analogy because it will fluctuate, and then this test will come and it could bring you down. It could drop you down the the scale. But that's your test, and that's okay. If you can still remain unmoved by this, and people will say, "Oh, well, how do I remain unmoved? Because this is real, but I'm being told to not see this as real." That, yes, can be challenging for the mind to proceed.
Mm.
But the key is to say, right, things are working for me. Things in life can change in the blink of an eye, to
Very
the
true.
point where and this is where people will say you couldn't consciously devise how you get from start to finish. How that bridge of incident came about, you can't consciously know how that's going to happen,
Right.
because in 1 week you could have been snooping on social media in a moment of weakness, which, by the way, it happens, right? It does happen. No one's judging anyone for doing it, but it does
Right.
happen. You help yourself better if you don't do it, but we're aware that it happens. You see something horrible and it completely sets you back, right? It completely, hammers your confidence. Within a week or a fortnight, that thing that you've seen didn't mean anything, and that could completely shatter. It could completely change in the blink of an eye. But you don't know this. All that you have to do internally is work on you and focus on you and focus on how you feel about certain situations, on certain experiences, certain
Mm.
events. Your only duty is to work on you and how you feel, first and foremost, about you, because when you work on how you feel about you, that ultimately automatically changes how you feel about external experiences. Now, at the start for me with the whole coronavirus pandemic that kicked off, I was moved like that,
Mm.
moved by that like a pawn, constantly everywhere, and it was becoming quite challenging. I'm like, right, okay, I need to step back from that, just accept that, it's happening. For me, perfect opportunity to go deep within and work on the self, because
Right.
I've been given almost a gift of time.
Definitely.
There's nothing's happening in the outside. There's almost no social life, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. I feel okay about myself. I feel, it's hard for a lot of people to deal with at the moment, and I'm completely conscious of that. But these are opportunities for you to work on you. Everything that happens on the outside is always an opportunity for inward reflection, I feel.
Absolutely.
And that's my personal opinion. And through, again, this has been through personal experiences. When I've when I've noticed something happening, I don't go in and say, "Oh, that's happened," and I blame myself because I
Right.
maybe made it happen.
Right.
It's more important for me to go in and go, "How do I feel about this that's happened?" Because that's going to be the next step for me to go forward again. That's
Beautiful.
almost going to be for me to bounce. I'm almost going to bounce from that and then go beyond it. And then that's going to carry on a journey. There may be another test comes up in future, but that's okay. It's more important. It's so important to to deal with the situations as they come up. But it's all through inward reflection, I feel.
Right. Nah, I mean you're right to deal with them as they come up and to not, run from the issue. And I think you made a great point about tests because I've noticed that with so many people, um, is that the universe, and this is not everyone, obviously, but I've noticed that I feel like the universe will send you a test, so many people a test to see if they really want what they're asking for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I've noticed that so many times with people, and it's like the universe is kind of playing a game on you because it's like it sends you a decoy
Yeah.
of it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing in a sense almost.
Yeah.
They send you that to pop up in your reality to see if you're going to say yes or no. And most people end up saying yes to this when they should be really saying yes to this over here. And then,
Yes.
like you said earlier, like the whole thing fumbles. You know what I'm saying? I can remember when maybe a year after, maybe not a year, maybe less than a year after me and my SP had broken up, literally. So I was literally a year after me and my SP had broken up, 7 years ago, maybe it was like within that year, something like that. But um, I had ran into a person,
Yeah.
there was a woman, and I could have easily probably, got into a relationship with her. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could have, I could have definitely talked to her, dated her, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
But um, I was wise enough to pay attention to the signs. I was wise enough to listen to myself, even at that time, because I've always been, intuitive in a sense, and I've just like I've always had a shit ton of common sense. You know what I mean? For lack of a better way to put it, like common
Yeah.
sense is something that I've always had. Like I've never been naive with things, or even when it might have seemed like I've been naive with something. Like, no, trust me, like I know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So like even at that time, I wasn't as spiritually aware as I am now, but I just knew like I paid attention to the signs, I paid attention to how I felt, I paid attention to her actions, you know what I'm saying? Not understanding everyone as you pushed out at the time, really.
Yeah.
But I just could see like, okay, she was younger than me by a few years, however many years, I forget exactly how many, years it was, but I was just like, I could tell like, no, this isn't it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
again, decoy, and I feel like the universe does that for so many people, but
Yeah.
people, they just don't pay attention, or, you know, I think they just get impatient, because they haven't been doing something long enough and their mental diet
Yeah.
isn't where it's supposed to be. And so, they create all of this unnecessary anxiety, which to me, anxiety is a very selfish, egotistical um mental thing. And I'm gonna tell you what I mean, because it may sound controversial, but to me, when people have anxiety around anything, pretty much, I found that a person is you're making it too much about you. You're making it too much about, you're the center of the circle. There's a circle and you're in the center of it.
Yeah.
So a person is saying and thinking to themselves, again, this goes back to mental diet, not having your mental diet strong.
Yeah.
If a person doesn't have a strong mental diet and they have anxiety, why do they have anxiety? Because what if my specific person doesn't call me? What if my specific person doesn't text me? What if my specific person
Yeah.
isn't here for my birthday? What if my specific person doesn't invite me to this function? What if my specific person this? What
Yeah.
if my it's all anxiety is a selfish mental issue because I realize when you take the focus off of yourself, the anxiety will dissipate. The anxiety will go away. If I'm getting ready to speak in front of a crowd of 5,000 people and I'm saying to myself, oh man, what if I mess up? What if I forget to say this? What
Yeah.
if I don't look presentable?
Yeah.
It's all about me. Take the focus off of me, put it on the crowd because it's really about the audience.
Yes.
The anxiety disappears. And I've noticed that this is a huge mental diet error that people make with anxiety. And I think just that easy fix alone can help someone's mental diet really get healed and cured and not worried about the future and not worried because you're it's a selfish mind state. You're so
Yeah.
worried about only you, and that's where all the anxiety is coming from. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I see what you mean there. Yeah, I understand it. It's yeah, you're absolutely. It could be deemed as controversial. It's absolutely not, by the way. I totally understand what you mean. And you're so right. A lot of that anxiety, and I know because I've been there. That anxiety comes from you develop a story in your head, and you develop how something is going to go from start to finish, and you unconsciously imagine it, and it's like, oh, so to use your example, what if they don't, what if they never call me? So it can start from there,
Right.
and then it's like, then I'm never going to have them, and then that can go from I'm never going to have anyone,
Right.
I'm always going to be alone,
Mm.
therefore I'm lonely. That all came through 4 steps from one anxious thought. Now, I feel the best way to do that, to I wouldn't say avoid that, but to cope with that, to cope with anxiety in that sense, is to be aware of the first thought. Don't don't try and change it. Don't just go jump away and try and change it. I feel the best way to deal with it is be aware of it. It's the first thing you can do is be aware that you're thinking it.
Agreed.
And that comes through perhaps heightened consciousness, awareness, mindfulness. There's ways you can develop mindfulness through meditation, all these different things, and they help with anxiety because
Yeah.
they help you become aware of these thoughts. You're not trying to change them, you're just trying to notice them, understand them, and then accept them. There's a huge difference between doing all of those three than actually engaging with them. You don't engage
Beautiful.
with those thoughts. You're aware of it. You understand it. You accept it, and from that space, it becomes easier,
Mm.
to let go. And I love the way you mentioned what happened to you after a year. Very very similar for myself. I perhaps wasn't at a heightened state of consciousness maybe as you were, and I was involved with people, but each person I was involved with on in my own personal journey, I always learned something from it. Always learned where I was at the time, and it was almost like checkpoints. I almost seen it
Right.
as like,
Right.
right, I'm
Yeah.
here. I'm not quite where I need to be.
Right.
Right,
Right.
cool. Next, and then it goes on, and then the next one is like, right, I'm still not quite there. Right,
Right.
next one, and it's like these are all coming up, and they're all tests. They're all complete tests, decoys, whatever you want to call it. And it's like,
Most
right,
stuff.
I'm still not where I need to be. And but the thing is, again, we talk about acceptance. That's okay. I'm not where I need to be, but that's okay. I know how to get there, and I get there through self work, self acceptance, self love, whatever
Mm.
you want to call it.
Mm.
But that's how I get there. But people will probably get to a checkpoint and go, I'm not quite there yet, and then they just give up. It would be like someone trying to climb a mountain and going halfway up and going, oh, what's the point in doing the rest of this? I've done half of it. And you're like, no, work on the self. It just becomes, again, we go back to the start about
Yeah.
practice. It comes from that.
It's a
Um,
snowball.
yeah, it totally snowball effect. And I think a lot of the time it's called, is it the 17-second rule? Very similar
Yeah,
thing.
from Abraham.
Yeah, it only takes
Yeah.
seven.
Yeah.
It only takes 17 seconds to go for one thought to evolve into another thought, and
Mm.
it's 17 seconds of engaging with that first thought takes you to the next one. It's so powerful and it's so crucial. And I think probably the biggest topic for this is for everyone not to give up on yourself.
Yeah,
because
please.
giving up on the self is, it's fatal. And I mean that in a spiritual sense, by the way.
No, I get it.
But it's so important to continue that work on self. And you're right when you talk about, Agnes, where you were listening to what she preached, and she was absolutely right, of course. You worked on yourself. It was all self love, self love, self love, and that's great. You didn't need anything on the outside, but you learn that over time. I'm not
Right.
going to sit here and say that after one day it'll all become clear.
No,
You know, it, it, it,
definitely
it,
not.
it becomes clear over time. And my own personal practices have been going now for 3 years, and if I look on reflection over the last 3 years of studying, learning, applying, I'm like, wow, what a journey that has been. And I couldn't devise it at all. But I know that if I was to look at myself 3 years ago, I wouldn't pity that person. I would be extremely grateful for that person,
Right,
because I came from there. I evolved. I grew
right,
from that person.
right.
And it's so important to not go into self pity, self loathing,
Mm,
blame, victim mentality. All these things come from reflection on the past and maybe blaming yourself for stuff that happened. Accept that it happened, because
right.
that's the first step, or the best step you can take to then move on from it. Almost not leave it behind, because
Mm,
it's still going to become part of you.
mm,
It's made up part of your
right,
ego. It's part of your personality.
right.
Accepting that happened, you can then say, right, okay, I perhaps can't change it, but I can now grow from this space. I can now say, right, this is me. This is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to go from
Beautiful.
a much better, conscious state. That's what I think about that.
Nah, listen, man. Listen, you are 100% right. And I tell people all the time, you know what I'm saying? What the original sin may not be your fault. What
Yep.
originally happened to you may not be your fault. Whatever that may be, whatever trauma, it may not be your fault. But
Yep.
healing is 100% your fault.
Yes.
Healing is 100% your responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is something you cannot delegate to anyone else. Like
Oh,
healing is your responsibility. I understand something might have happened to you when you were younger. A relationship might not have happened the way you wanted to. You experienced a deep trauma.
yeah.
That may not be your fault, but getting right, getting your mind right, fixing that, healing that is 100% your fault. You know what I'm saying? That's your responsibility. And I think with, like you said, with mental diet, I think all of these things will just come in place the more consistency you have. But again, a person will have to have the patience to be able to get to that point, because I've realized
Yes.
patience is one of the things that keeps people from having a strong mental diet, because
Absolutely.
so many people, we want what we want the next day. I mean, for instance, like, we both have YouTube channels, Joe.
Yeah.
The watch time on my videos are like 50% or less than 50% a lot of times. And
Yeah.
for these big YouTubers, it's the same thing, because there's YouTubers out here that have, you know, 300, 400,000 subscribers and videos I've watched. And they say it in their videos. They're like, yeah, my watch time is literally 50%, you know what I mean? Or less,
Yeah.
like
I'm the
whatever the
same.
case. Yeah, whatever the case may be. But my whole thing is like, you guys want to manifest a specific person back, but you can't even watch a 10-minute video. You can't even, like, you're literally
Yeah.
cutting out the video, halfway through a 10-minute video, and you're missing the gems, just like this interview you and I are doing right now.
Yeah.
Me and you always are spitting gems to the whole world when we do this
Agreed.
shit. Like,
Yeah.
we're spitting gems. And like, somebody's literally gonna watch the first 5 minutes of this video and click out, or the first 10 minutes. And then they want to wonder why they can't manifest their SP, or they can't
Yeah.
manifest this. And it's like, yo, you guys literally have zero. Some people have zero endurance. If you can't sit here and watch a 5-minute video, I remember watching Abraham Hicks. I was watching an Abraham Hicks video, however many months ago. And I remember reading in the comment section, somebody left the comment section and was like, man, this video is way too long. and the video was only like 10 minutes. And I just laughed when I read the comment. I was just like, yo, people are insane. Like people
It's
are just
yeah,
and so yeah, so like I'm saying, like I realized like patience is a huge another huge piece of mental diet and why people struggle with mental diet.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Patience, man. It's interesting because at times, even now, I'm guilty of that. Just in general,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
because it again, it's a habit. It's a habit.
Right.
almost as humans, in particular, we want something now. We want something almost yesterday. And we think, and it's the same. Like I've got family members, friends. You maybe be watching a movie. Now, for
Yeah, yeah.
instance, I've seen the movie.
Right, right.
For talking sake, and someone else hasn't, and you're 10 minutes into a movie and they'll say, what happens to this person? And they'll ask the questions and you're like, oh, just watch it. Just watch it and enjoy it and
Right.
savor it.
Right.
But you're so right with regards to videos. I'm the same. It's like 50% watch time. And
Yeah.
I'll look at it in videos and go, that video's like 15 minutes. But then you can almost go into a little bit of self-doubt and go, right, am I delivering good content in a concise period of time? Is that down to me? But it's true. People can be so impatient, and it's like, no, I just want results, and that's why perhaps probably the better, wouldn't say more successful channels, but the more viewed channels are the ones who are giving results or offering the potential for results fast. Because no one wants to, people want to cut corners. I know as well. I play football back like here in Scotland, and if you're doing laps or whatever around the pitch, you never want to go around the pitch. You want to cut corners because it's
Mm.
it's it's shorter.
Yeah, we used to
It's
do
all
that too.
it's how it is. People want things so quickly. They want things, and for me, that takes away the enjoyment of the process, because the process should really be enjoyable.
Right.
It should never feel like a chore to work on yourself, ever, ever,
Never.
ever. But we're just so conditioned to having external, physical things to make us happy,
Yep.
that we just want them all.
Mm.
And because we get this impression that if we have that, we will then feel a certain way, when we can actually have that by feeling a certain way. And it's so important. Again, a lot of focus here is on the self, and I love it because it kind of ties into what I'm talking about in the last two videos I made about inner talking. Persistence as well is key.
Mm.
Persistence is, and just about in every lecture, just about every lecture Neville has, he always says the golden line of an assumption, no false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. But people seem to jump away from that little statement, if persisted in. People choose not to read this. I feel people will say an assumption will harden into fact, or they'll think, I just have to assume and I'll get it. You don't assume it once. You persist. An
Yeah.
assumption, though false, if persisted in, that's the key.
That's the key.
That's the caveat. Persistence is the, again, it's the title of that video. It's the key to manifesting is persisting, because to give up and not to persist is like giving up on yourself, and it's giving up on your desire ultimately.
Yeah.
That's that persistence aspect's massive. I just feel it's so important that continue to work on yourself. People, just do it, because you will. You know, you can have what you want. You can have that specific person. You can have that job. You can have that money. You can have all of these things, but the work has to be done on you. The work
You.
all has to be done on you. It's outside isn't going to change unless the inside changes first. And you'll know when the inside changes first, because you will stop looking on the outside for validation, for security, for freedom, for love.
Absolutely.
You stop doing that, and you will stop doing it so naturally that when it shows up, it's beautiful. It's everything you wanted it to be, because it's everything you want for yourself and everything you are. And even like I think one of Agnes's recent videos was someone who got the specific person back and turned them away because they
Right,
wanted to keep working on themselves. Man,
right.
I've not watched the video yet, but I seen the notification and I loved it. I'm like, man, what a strong place of empowerment
Yes,
to be so focused on getting someone back, and then they came back and they went, no, I still need to work on me. This
beautiful.
has almost become so fun, so enjoyable, so rewarding that I'm not even going to stop here. And I'm the same. Like I've showed you earlier a big bunch of books I've bought. I want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
learn. I want to grow. I want to develop. I want to expand
absolutely.
consciousness to the point where it becomes natural for me, and I don't need anything on the outside. You know, I mean, for instance, today my own personal career. I started a new job today, and the mind could have easily slipped in there and went, "Oh, how are you going to do this?" And nerves could have kicked in, and I'm like, "Nah, man, I've got this. I've got this because I feel confident within that I'm able to do stuff, and I'm not scared, no fright. Just just embrace that, that aspect. And it's so
Right.
important to embrace yourself and embrace anything that comes, and just feel that love within. And
Oh
yeah, it's
man.
so important.
Yeah, listen, you're right, and everything you said is it, and that also applies to other people because so many times, you know, we as people we put our truth in other people's words, and we have to understand that our truth isn't what someone else says.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of like a facade. Like, you know, I no longer put my truth in the words of other people, meaning I don't need praise. You know, so many
yes.
people could come. I could grow my YouTube subscriber account to 1 million subscribers, and people could give me all of the greatest compliments in the world.
Yeah.
But guess what? If I acknowledge that, in a sense, I'm giving power to them.
Yeah.
So, what happens if that power gets taken away? What happens if I lose my YouTube channel? What happens if I lose all of those subscribers? Now my self-worth has gone with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And so
Yeah.
again, this is tied into mental diet. This is why my mental diet is the way it is because I understand that whatever your truth is, whether you like my YouTube channel, whether you don't like my YouTube channel, that's your truth.
Yes.
That's not my truth. I
Yeah.
know what my truth is and it's impregnable. You
Yes.
cannot penetrate my truth. You know what I'm saying? Because again, and how did I get to this point? Mental diet. So I encourage everyone to, know your truth. Don't let other people's words be your truth. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Don't find satisfaction in, having your specific person or someone tell you you love me. Like I was saying this to myself the other day because I like talk to myself and I have conversations all the time with myself.
Yeah.
Whether you're my parents, a sibling, a specific person, it doesn't matter who you are. I would never ever again have to hear the words I love you from any of my parents. From
Yeah.
my parents, my siblings, my specific person. I don't ever have to hear those words again. Why? Because of my mental diet.
Yeah.
Because I know that I am loved. I don't need you to tell me you love me in order for me to feel loved. And this is an issue with
Absolutely.
so many people. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to keep like going and getting too deep into it, but I just wanted to like stress and emphasize that is like understand that you don't need to seek outside validation. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
once your mental diet is strong enough and you love yourself, you will cease to need pretty much any of these things. But the crazy thing
Absolutely.
is that you're going to end up getting those things. That's the ironic part is that you're going to end up getting those things even though you know you don't need and want it. And
Yeah.
that's just the beauty of the universe.
Yeah. It's exactly. It's You don't need and want it because you know you are it. Totally 100%. And I noticed it as well. I was thinking earlier, just on reflection, when I talk about starting your job. I'm like, oh, I thought I would have got a message from such and such saying good luck. And I'm like, and then as soon as I said that, I'm like, I don't I don't need that. Like
You don't need it, right?
it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. And this is the thing. I'll be honest, guys, and this is through personal experience. When I was at my lowest of the low, I was in the office in my old job, and I actually, one of the things I said to a colleague of mine who was really helpful, by the way, and it was at the time it was so important to have people there.
Mm,
At my lowest of the lowest, I remember saying to him, I just feel like if I wasn't here, who would care? Now,
wow.
I remember saying that, and word for word, that was how it went down. And I completely shattered.
Mm,
Now, I'm not went the polar opposite, saying I don't care if I'm not here, because no one, that's not the point. The point is there was such a desire from love from someone or something outside of me I needed. It was a crutch for me that I needed that. It was like your mind just can go into that space of no one cares about me. I'm lonely, and it's such a dark, dark, depressing place.
mm,
Not a nice place to be in. And I don't mind saying it. I'm completely honest.
mm.
When I was in that space, it was horrible. Getting out of bed at times was difficult. It was challenging, really, really emotionally challenging. Now,
Absolutely.
with 3 years of, not even 3 years actually, of self work and practices, I'm now at a space of like, you know what? I'm, you know, amazing at what I do. I don't need that validation. I don't need anyone to tell me you're doing a good job. I don't need anyone to tell me you're this, you're that, or the other. I just know I have that confidence within. And
Right.
that as I said, that confidence doesn't come overnight.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't come in one day worth of, sitting studying it. It's
No.
taken 3 years, and even at that, I'm not quite at that level. People will maybe think, oh, but you know so a lot about Neville, you know the mechanics, you know this, you know that. I'm not at that level. I'm not at such a level of enlightenment where I can just sit and be.
Right.
Things come up. Life sometimes happens. It's how it affects me personally. It's how I perceive it. Everything is all perception. And I learned this again through cognitive behavioral therapy. You could have you could have 10 people lined up, and they could all be rejected. And every one of those 10 people takes that rejection differently. They perceive that rejection differently. It's
Yes.
all inner perception. It's all how you perceive an external event, which is what affects your consciousness. And that comes from your natural state of consciousness. And it's so important to work on that, because then you will start having, you may have the same experience, but you see it completely differently.
Completely different.
Yeah, you're looking at from through a different, through different glasses, almost through a different point of view, and that only comes from how you see yourself.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's so
Listen,
important.
go ahead.
No, 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 that was
You,
me. That was me. On you
oh,
go.
okay. Yeah. No, listen, you said that so perfectly because I realize that's all life really is perception.
Yep.
That's why so many people live in different worlds. That's how we can live in the same world and be experiencing something totally different. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? Because do you have a poverty mindset? Do you have a wealthy, opulent mindset? You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Do you believe relationships are easy? Do you believe relationships are hard? And like
Yeah.
you said, you can literally take these examples and you can just place it in different aspects of your life and
Yeah.
realize and ask yourself, okay, how do I see the world when it comes to money? How can I see the world when it comes to relationships? How do
Yeah.
I see the world when it comes to friendships? How do I see the world when it comes to marriage? You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
something that people don't know what to do, but I think is an art that we must master, is we must master absorbing without attachment. You know what I mean? Observe but don't absorb.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
observe but do not absorb. And I think too many people, again, this goes back to mental diets. So many people, they observe and they absorb. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they do that with themselves and they do that with other people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If a parent is going through something, or if a friend, or if specific person, whatever, like you observe what's going on, but you also absorb all of that
Yeah.
energy. And when you get your mental diet right, you stop absorbing because you learn, like, okay, I see what's going on, but I realize I have a choice now. I have a choice to
Yeah.
not absorb the negative energy. I have a choice to not absorb that bad news that I
Yes,
just got about whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
But again, like you said, it takes most people, because you and me are straight shooters. I'm not going to sit here and tell a person like, oh yeah, you're going to be able to do this in a month or whatever the case may be. Like, no, most knowing that most people don't persist in what they want, knowing that most
Absolutely.
people don't have patience, knowing that most people it's going to take them probably a good amount of time. You know what I mean? Could be anywhere from 6 months to a year. I
Yeah,
know most people don't want to hear that, but I'm not clickbait. You're not clickbait. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to tell you the truth. And the truth is for a lot of people, it's going to take us, just like me. It took me, 4 years to finally say, all right, I'm going to start actually applying the
yeah,
stuff that I'm reading. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And so
yeah,
I'm in this, I was in the same boat. And so now I'm trying to help, just like you're trying to help other people say, listen, you have
yeah,
the power. Observe, but don't absorb.
yeah. Absolutely, and that again goes back to, we're talking about ignoring the 3D reality. It's the same
Yeah,
thing. It's the exact same thing.
yeah.
You witness it. It's all about how you perceive that experience. So again, we go back to we're at two different parts of the world, and we could be both going through the exact same thing. I could
Mm,
feel one way about it. You could feel another way about it. That doesn't mean I'm wrong or you're wrong, or I'm right and you're right.
right,
But the key here is in your reality, how you perceive it is going to be your reality. And in my reality, how I perceive it, it's going to be my truth. And this is the thing, it's not about us sitting here forcing truth and saying, this is it, this is that, this is about our personal experiences that you've had, that I've had, growing from there. And then people make their own decision about it. People make
right.
their own, and I said it in the last video I made, at every moment of every day, of your waking day, you have a conscious choice to choose what you think about and how you feel about it. You always have that choice. And that there is the power within. That's what's said about the power of I am. You always, at every point of the day, have that conscious choice to make that decision about what you think about and how you feel about what you're thinking about, because it's the first step is noticing that you're thinking. If you notice that this is where mindfulness comes in. You notice that you're thinking, you can realize that you are thinking, and when you realize that you are thinking, that's your true self. That's the core of you in action. You can choose to think about something else. You can always do that. You could be in the midst of anything, but you can always choose. People, we've almost forgotten this because we get so wrapped up in external circumstances. We get so wrapped up in being a victim. We get so wrapped up in things happen to us. We don't realize that they're happening, or they will continue to happen if we unconsciously persist in thinking about them. We always have that choice. We always have that choice. And I understand, listen, I'm completely conscious that if you are suffering from anxiety or depression, I'm completely conscious that it's difficult. It is difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
me
I'm
either.
not sitting here for a minute saying, I'll just do
Yeah,
this and just think.
yeah, no,
To understand that you have that power within is going to be a crucial step for you to
mm,
overcome anxiety, because you will realize that you're in control of the thoughts. The thoughts don't control you.
right.
You are in control of those thoughts. And yeah,
And,
it's so strong and so powerful.
and like you said, man, you touched on something really good with the whole victim thing. Like that's another part of mental diet is you have to stop telling yourself you're the victim.
Yeah,
You have to stop treating yourself like the victim because again, the original sin, you may very well have been the victim.
yes,
It's not your fault.
yeah,
But the fact that you keep making yourself a victim now, that is 100% your fault and your responsibility,
yeah,
and that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow,
absolutely.
and they get defensive, You know what I mean? They'll start to, talk back, say nasty things to you because you're telling them a truth that they need to hear.
Yeah.
And so that they stop running from themselves, because so many people in this world, they run from themselves because they don't want to face themselves. They've created a character in that victim identity.
Yes.
So they don't know who they are outside of that victim identity that they created. But in order to have a strong mental diet, you have to get out of playing that victim mentality. You have to stop telling yourself you're the victim.
Yeah.
And stop, treating yourself that way, and stop looking to other people to treat you that way, and stop having the poor me attitude. Oh, why me? Why me?
Yeah.
Why always me? You know what I mean? Like, it's so imperative. I'm so glad you touched on that, Joe, because that is another huge, huge imperative piece to having a strong mental diet.
Yeah. And the more you identify with that, as I said, it becomes an unconscious persistence. It becomes an unconscious persistence. And again, when I go back to a video I made when we spoke about it earlier as well, uncritical self-observation, uncritical. And again, that goes back to awareness, noticing, understanding, and then acceptance. Critical is going back, looking at a past event, taking responsibility for it, but then blaming yourself that it happened. That's criticism. Criticizing your past, criticizing your ego for something that happened. If you're uncritical, you can observe, and it's that, again, the exercise I'd made in that video was, look at what you want. What would you say to yourself if you had it? Right? Now go in and say, what are you currently saying to yourself? 9 out of 10, they're not in alignment, which is fine. Which it's fine, especially if at the very start of the journey. It's okay. It is okay. But people can look at this second list and go, oh man, this is what I'm thinking. And then they'll go right into blame straight away. It's like, oh, you're not going to get this because you're not thinking that way. And you stop, put the brakes on, accept that this isn't the real you. This first column is the real you. Now let's work on it. And again, it fluctuates. You could have 3 days where, let's use a day's analogy. You have 3 days where you work on it and it feels a little bit better. Then you maybe have 1 day where you've not persisted. That means you're only taking 1 step back. You've took 3 forward, but you're only taking 1 back.
Exactly.
But it's okay. You pick up the next day. Allow yourself to have, to have moments of weakness. Allow it. Accept it, because
beautiful.
The more naturally you work on these things, the more you persist. You can have a bad day. Don't think for 1 minute, I've had 1 bad day, therefore I'm not going to get my thing. You're allowed to have it. You know what I mean? You're allowed to have that thing, but just don't dwell on it. Don't blame. Don't beat yourself up for having it. It's okay. It's all fine. So yeah, man, this has been amazing. Again, really, really powerful stuff. A lot of energy. You can tell through the delivery of this, it's quite an important, quite a passionate thing for both of us, this mental diets. And we both know we've both had results from this. We've both had experiences. Great to share, great to, shoot the breeze about this. Again, time just flies when we're getting into this stuff. But I love the fact there's no real, structure to it. It's a conversation, it's opinions. Again, this is all down to whoever's going to watch it. If you're going to enjoy it, great. We hope you do. I'm sure you will. There's a lot of personal truths in this from both myself and Marvin. There's a lot of stuff that we've experienced and we've had our own inner guidance with. There's a lot of stuff you're maybe going to pick up from this. We hope that you're going to pick up from this. But
if they watch the whole video.
Exactly. But I just, one thing I want to kind of finish up with, I'll hand over to Marvin to finish up also. But one thing I want to finish with is the key takeaways, if you want to shoot to the end. Work on yourself. Don't give up on yourself. Love yourself and accept yourself. These are the 4 things. Don't give up. Work, love, and accept. these things, you get these right, man, you're going to shoot, you're going to shoot for the stars. But just never lose sight of that. Always working, accept yourself for your past, accept yourself in the now, and then enjoy the future. So that's what I want to finish up with, Marvin. I'll hand over to you. So if you want anything else to say, we'll just fire it in.
No, I think you said that perfectly. And I think if there's anything I want to add is just to know that you can't lose. Like if you do it the way Joe just said it, you cannot lose. Like winning is inevitable. Like you will win 100% if you do what he just said.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Excellent. So again, another great chat. I'm certain there's going to be more in future, whether equally as passionate, equally as powerful, and a lot of good content. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Great chat, great stuff, and everyone else, hope you enjoyed this. If you've liked it, of course, like, subscribe. Marvin's channel, of course, this will probably be on his channel also, with the details in the description of his channel if you haven't already hit it. Yeah, again, all that good stuff. If you've enjoyed, plenty more content, plenty more where this came from. And I'll see you all on the next one. So take care.
I guess.